Okay, welcome everyone to our week 4 DES 104 live session. I do apologize for having to hold it a day late. Everybody in my house is sick, so including myself yesterday. So it's been not a fun weekend, and a lot of running around this morning, going to doctor's appointments and everything else. But we're here, so yay, let's get on this. So again, we're in week 4. I can't believe how fast this mod went by. Hopefully you say to yourself, wow, this went by so fast because I was having a lot of fun. Because, this is your first design class and it's Photoshop. Photoshop is awesome, but it is a lot to take in. So I'm hoping everybody really enjoyed themselves this mod. I definitely enjoyed teaching all of you. All right, so again, my telephone hours are roughly Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. But if you email me, that's usually the easiest or best point of contact. Just be aware that I am located in Eastern Standard Time Zone. Our week 4 assignments this week. So we're in week 4. Things cannot be turned in late because the course closes out at midnight. That's how it is. I have zero control over that. So you're going to want to make sure that you're uploading your work. Make sure that you upload it early if you can, just so that way you can ensure that it gets uploaded okay, and that things, don't get bogged down when you're trying to upload. Think of it this way. Everyone in the school, not just in the School of Graphic Design, but the entire Independence University School, and how many different programs we have, all of their courses are closing out Saturday at midnight. So that's a lot of work being uploaded on the school servers, and it can be really taxing on the servers. If something happens where you're uploading and you're having issues, email your files to me. If they are there first thing in the morning, Sunday, when I get up, I will grade them. If they're not, I'm going to assume that you didn't do the work. So that's kind of how it is. We do have a discussion post this week. It is due Wednesday at midnight. And don't forget to respond to 2 of your fellow students by Saturday, and make sure that you're posting on different days. There's a lot of points to be gained for doing the 2 extra posts to your students. Also, week 1 and week 2 assignments and assessments will close out on Friday. And then this was supposed to be yesterday's live session, so I had to fix that. Resubmissions for higher grade are due tonight at midnight. If you have missing work from week 1, week 2, week 3, and you resubmit it, or you submit it today, and I grade it tomorrow, because that's probably how this is going to go, you will not have the advantage to resubmit for a higher grade, just because at this point it is so late and we're in week 4. But again, that's kind of how the cookie crumbles if you miss those deadlines. All right, so our last multi-session is today. I didn't go back in and fix my slides. It will actually be from 12 p.m. To 2 p.m. Mountain Time, so right after this live session. So for anyone who's here, you can stay late. If you are watching at home, I hope that you saw the announcements and you know when the multi-session is. So our agenda: late submissions and grading. Remember, if you have any missing work from week 1 or week 2, that is going to close out on Friday. If you need until Saturday, you are going to need to get in contact with me and get permission to submit those files directly to me. And I will give you a link to do that. Again, this whole class has been about learning and using Photoshop. And you may be wondering, well, why am I taking this class? Maybe I want to do web. Maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to do this. Photoshop is used in pretty much everything that you do. You can, even if you're designing a website, You're going to need to resize photos. You're going to need to change the resolution. There's so many different reasons why you are going to need to use Photoshop. Just people who are photographers, they use Photoshop. They're not even doing graphic design, except for taking the pictures, but they fix them in Photoshop. Everybody these days pretty much uses Photoshop. Those people who don't use Photoshop use something, like a free version of it on their cell phones all the time. We're constantly, color correcting, adding filters, doing fun things with our photos. So we're going to take a look at the week 4 media review, our discussion. I'm going to do a demo of the assignment, and then I also have some tips regarding your assessment this week. If your work for week 3 was submitted on time, it has been graded. If it was submitted up until yesterday, it's been graded. If you have late or resubmissions, it will be graded as I'm able to get to it. Just kind of letting you know where I am. I'm trying to go in, clear the grading out. Go in, clear the grading out. Go in, clear the grading out. Be sure that you're following the instructions with your assignments and assessments. Don't waste precious points or time with not reading over those instructions. A lot of times that's where a lot of missed points are happening. Also, file formats, make sure that we're saving things in the right file format. If it calls for a PSD file, make sure that you're saving it as a PSD file. If it calls for JPEG, make sure that you're saving it as JPEG. Make sure that you're using those correct file names. And again, following those instructions. So learning and using Photoshop, again, why are you taking this class? Are you taking it to get a grade? Do you need it towards your degree? Or do you want it to be a learning tool that you can use in your career? Really, it should be that you want it to be a learning tool that you're going to be able to use in your career. The goal is not to get an A and just be able to follow along step by step with the demo and then turn in just that one assignment correctly. You need to understand the program to be able to, do any work outside of school. The goal is for you to be able to use these tools on your own and feel comfortable using these tools on your own. So you're going to need to practice more and more on outside projects. So you can find your own outside projects. You can go and do the Adobe or the lynda.com tutorials. Those are some great places to really get in there and do that work. So again, how might you see yourself using Photoshop in your career? You can create original artwork. Remember, we made those desktop backgrounds in week 1. You can use the shape tool, the coloring tools, the brushes, the blending modes. You can start with an image. Again, there's a ton of different tutorials out there, Adobe and lynda.com. Also, there's some great ones even on YouTube. You can composite images using those adjustment layers and the blending modes. Maybe you want to do photo retouching and editing, using the selection and the repair tools or those adjustment layers, creating custom images for projects. There's so much freelance work available with photo retouching. So again, make sure that you know how to and you feel comfortable using the shape layers, the color bucket or the paintbrush, the different selection tools, that healing and clone stamp tool, the patch tool, the content aware tool, using different adjustment layers. The leaps and bounds that I have seen you guys take where you just started off opening up Photoshop for the first time, and then how I'm seeing you work with those adjustment layers, I am astounded by the work that you are doing. I'm like, yes, like when I see that, because you guys are trying so hard and you're getting it and you're grasping it, and that is so awesome to see. Again, creating masks from selections. You can do the quick mask. You can use the clipping adjustment layers to mask your layers or do the blending modes. So our week 4 overview, let's just kind of go into the course for a minute. We can take a look. So our objectives for this week, we're going to be creating a layout. Let's take a look at our course media. So for week 4, you have a pre-recorded lecture with Carly. It's going to go over resolution, principles of design, and some layout tips. Then there is a lynda.com tutorial on designing a poster. And chapter 1, adding texture in Photoshop. This goes back to your assessment for this week. So make sure you're watching that. Chapter 4 is setting up a document in Photoshop and adding type, blacking out the newspaper, finessing and printing. And then we also have advanced photography tips, another lynda.com tutorial. So there's 2 chapters there. So quite a few videos for this week that will assist you in doing both the assignment and the assessment for this week. And let's take a look at our discussion for this week. So we're discussing the 4 major principles of design. So what's the career relevancy of this? Well, being able to apply the principles of design is an essential part of working professionally as a designer. Clients and employers will not only expect their graphic designer to master the tools of design, they will also have to master the principles of design in order to make aesthetically pleasing images. Photoshop can help designers make powerful, focused imagery that has a strong message. It's a tool to help get their client's message across. So let's look at our background. The elements of design, the elements that make up a design can include line, shape, color, space, and texture, among others. How these elements are arranged in a composition is what makes a design effective or ineffective. The way these elements are arranged should conform to the principles of design. These principles are contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And let's take a look at what these terms mean. So contrast means certain parts of your design stands out. The most important type of contrast is value contrast, making sure your focal point, whether it's text or an image, is significantly lighter or darker than the background so it's easier to read. But contrast can also refer to the contrast of size, the contrast of color, the contrast of different shapes, using differences to make certain things stand out. Contrast is important to design because it makes a design readable. Next, we have repetition. And repetition means using the same visual elements to create a cohesive look. So this might be using a cohesive color scheme, repeating a certain font, repeating a certain type of bullet point, or repeating a shape to create a pattern. Repetition is important to design because it helps make the design cohesive. Then we have alignment. So columns and rows in a design ensure the text and visual elements line up neatly and utilize balance. A systematic approach to alignment will ensure your design appears neat and well thought out rather than just a random assortment of images and text. Alignment is important to design because it gives a design structure. Then we have proximity. Placing objects or elements that are related somehow close together helps to make them visually connected. Proximity is important to design because it makes a design easier to understand. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of this before we get going. So this is a great example of contrast right here. We have not only the black and white, we have the striking red. We have, elements of gray put in here. But your eye, because there's so much contrast, your eye doesn't really settle on one part of the image. Instead, it's constantly moving throughout this image, which is great. This is a really, really good example of contrast. Let me pull up Repetition. Probably helps if I spell it correctly. So here's a good example of repetition. The way that the letters have formed a pattern, which also forms a letter. And it's the same throughout the entire piece. Another good example of repetition is the use of these geometric shapes, but also the line work, the repetition of the line work within the geometric shapes. So again, great repetition there. Here we go. So all of the text for alignment, all of the text is nice and aligned, and then we have this one piece that is not aligned, which really becomes the focal point because it breaks the alignment. But you can see where they're using alignment. Here's another great example of using alignment. Look, you can almost drop a line anywhere and see this great alignment with the different columns of text. So this spans the whole width, and then this is really 5 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I dropped a grid, I could see where this breaks the first 2 blocks of that grid, and then these 3 stay within that grid. A great example of alignment. This is also a great example of proximity. So like things are kept together so that way when somebody is looking at the page, the information makes sense to them. So here's a proximity. Land. The subheadline is powers of change. They've kept that together. This is where it is. Governor's Island, New York, September 11th, and then the 18th through the 20th. So you have your location and you have your dates. Then this is what they will be discussing at each place. 11 officers' houses at Nolan Park, Governor's Island. Again, proximity of the information. So your eye knows how to scan through the page to read what it needs to read. So that's why we put all of these elements together. And the funny thing is we actually call them the crap elements of graphic design, but it's really putting everything together so it doesn't look like crap, right? All right, so here's your prompt for this week. And there seems to be a missing JPEG right there. Now that you understand the elements and principles of design, you will critique a design that utilizes these elements and principles effectively and a design that utilizes these elements and principles ineffectively. For your initial post, view these 2 designs below, and I'm going to need to see why that image is missing. Hold on one moment. That's not good. All right, so this is what it looks like. I'm going to leave myself like on here, and I don't know if it's just because my student view, there's something wrong with my student view, but if anyone else cannot see the first image, please let me know, and I will have to kind of do some digging into the back end of Canvas to figure out what's going on. But again, hopefully you guys are all watching the live session and you're seeing this. So for your initial post, view these 2 designs below and evaluate them in terms of their use of contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. Discuss how the 4 principles of design are either properly or improperly used in design A. Discuss how the 4 principles of design are either properly or improperly used in design B. So one of them might have maybe 3 of the 4. Maybe one of them has 4 of the 4. Maybe one of them has 1 of the 4. They don't each have to be all or nothing. You know, maybe they both have good contrast, but maybe one has better repetition and one has better alignment and one maybe has better proximity. So, you know, look at each thing. And if you're not quite sure what are good examples, again, just like I did, Google good examples of contrast in graphic design and then Based on what you see, do you think that that's in either of these? Discuss how or which design is more successful in utilizing the principles of design with the placement of the elements. Is it A or B? What's your reasoning for choosing one design over the other? Research resources of constructive criticism techniques to apply to your feedback. So you need to have an APA citation for this week. So for your citation, you might use articles that show examples of the rules of graphic design, or tutorials that cover technical aspects of design and your feedback to other students. You can also find articles from experts that suggest what makes a design efficient. Your initial and reply posts should work to develop a group understanding of this topic, challenge each other, build on each other, always be respectful, but discuss this and figure it out together. So here's your instructions. If needed, to upload and embed an image into your discussion, make sure that you reference all of the images used, but you know, you don't have to embed an image, but if you want to, just make sure that you are referencing it. But you can see how to do that in these two links right here. Again, you need to have your one initial post, 2 follow-up posts to your fellow students. And you can see some samples of typical A work. So there you go. Just do not copy and paste. And let me try to get myself back into student view. And we'll look over the assignment in a second because I'm going to do a demo of that, so we'll go over it in more detail. But let's take a look at our week 4 assessment. So, understanding best practices ensures you will work professionally and efficiently when employed as a graphic designer. Working efficiently means using those non-destructive processes so that you can easily and quickly make changes to a project based on your employer's wish. Time equals money, and if you work efficiently, you'll be able to meet deadlines and make more money, which is what we all want. So here's our background for this week. In this assessment, we will apply 3 simple resizing and editing techniques to a raster-based image similar to the one that you might use in your professional career. 3 simple things you will need to know how to do as a graphic designer are resizing, adjusting, and blending. So let's take a look at some of the best practices. Resizing. When resizing an image on a document, you always want to maintain the same height to width proportions so that way you don't skew or distort your image. An image where the height and width aspect ratios get changed will look stretched or squished. The easiest way to do this is to hold down the shift button when resizing something and never make a small file larger than its original size. Remember how I went over that with you guys last week? You can lock those proportions, so when you resize them, it keeps the it shrinks it proportionally with the width and height. And why we went over placing that as an embedded object, because once you scale it down, you can't scale it back up. Photoshop doesn't remember. Next is adjusting. In order to work non-destructively, all recoloring, brightness contrast adjustments, and other adjustments should be made on separate layers so that changes and adjustments can be easily made as the client requests them. Then we have blending. To apply effects such as textures to an image or design, it's important to understand how to change the blending mode of a layer to achieve the best results. Overlay is ideal for adding texture. Color is ideal for colorizing an image. Multiply is ideal for making black opaque and white transparent. Screen is ideal for making white opaque and black transparent. But remember how we kind of went over that in week 2 when we were doing that color pop? We had to kind of mess a little bit with some of those different blending modes to get the color of our headscarf, that one color, to look as realistic as possible. So for this assessment, you're going to place and resize 4 textures over an image to see what the result will look like. So first you need to download this image. So I'm going to just download it so we can all take a look. See where it went. So here's our image. And then you're going to download these textures. There's 4 of them, and you're going to place each texture over each of the tree squares. So on top of each tree square. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You can place whichever texture over whichever square you would like. And then you're going to change the blending modes to the appropriate setting for each textured layer. And then you're going to place a hue saturation adjustment layer over the whole document and use the color of your choice. So make sure you're saving your file as a PSD file and then do a save as and choose JPEG. And you're only going to submit the JPEG to me for grading. But don't flatten the layers in your PSD file in case if your instructor needs to see your work on the layers. And make sure that you're reading over the rubric when you are submitting. All right, so that is our assessment for this week. For the assignment for this week, you're going to be designing a social campaign poster, which again, another fun assignment as far as I'm concerned. I think you guys have some great assignments in this course, I gotta say. So let's look over our career relevancy. As a professional graphic designer, you'll need to utilize Photoshop's design tools in order to create advertisements that are the appropriate format for both print and web. Understanding how to create each type of format is an essential part of working professionally. It enables designers to meet the needs of their clients, whether their clients need designs for print or for the screen. So here's our background for this week. When designing a campaign for a client, sometimes you'll need to make your file appropriate for both print and web. So let's look at the requirements for both. For the web, the standard resolution for web is 72 dpi. Web images should be in RGB mode due to the mode being ideal for web screen graphics. The final size of a web graphic should be under 500 kilobytes for faster loading. Because remember, you guys probably know, if you try to pull something up on your tablet or if you try to pull something up on your cell phone and it's really big, it's super annoying while you sit there using up your data trying to wait for the page to load, right? Especially if you're somewhere where you might not have Wi-Fi and you have kind of spotty cell service, it's always the worst. So again, keep in mind, even 500 kilobytes, that's large for a web graphic. If possible, if you can, try to keep your web graphics under 200 kilobytes in size. Photoshop has features that help you optimize your graphics for the web. The export menu under the File tab has features such as Save for Web, which allows you to compress your graphics and reduce their final file size. But then we have print, which is different. We want things bigger in print. So the standard resolution for print is 300 dpi and the preferred image mode is CMYK. Not to get into all of the different color modes, which we will go over in detail in DES 114, and if you ever get me in DES 114, I will go over all of my stories from the printing press at the place I used to work. But an easy way to understand CMYK, think of your inkjet printer you might have at home, and even if you don't have one, I'm sure we've all seen an inkjet printer, where it comes with cyan, magenta, which is that pink, yellow, and then black. So C for cyan, M for magenta, Y for yellow, K for black, because they thought B would confuse people with blue. So there it is. So that's your CMYK. And it's necessary for print due to the mode being functional best for ink. Many print clients request a PDF be sent as the final deliverable. Photoshop has a number of options available when saving a PDF. If you want a small size, that can be easily sent over the web. You'll want to select smallest file size and make sure preserve Photoshop editing capabilities is not checked. If you're saving something that's going to go to print, you're going to want to select high quality print from the drop-down menu. Because again, when it's actually getting to the printing press, bigger is better. So here's our prompt. For this assignment, you're going to be creating a social issue poster similar to the types of advertising campaigns that are created by companies such as the Ad Council. And you might say to yourself, the Ad Council, that sounds kind of familiar. but I'm not quite sure what they are. As soon as you look them up, you will know exactly who the ad council is. They do all of these different campaigns. So let's take a look at the classics, because I feel like those are the ones that we all know. There's the ones for the drunk driving. I remember this. I still remember this as a kid. I still remember the safety belt dummies. I remember the McGruff, the crime dog. I am definitely dating myself now. I believe that they also, I want to say they used to do the one with the eggs, like the this is your brain on drugs. I think that was them as well. But they do lots of different social impact campaigns. So just kind of check out their website. So some social issue topics that you can choose include bullying, obesity prevention, domestic violence, animal abuse, equality, energy conservation, climate change, autism awareness, diversity and inclusiveness. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a document that is 17 inches tall and 11 inches wide. And what you need to do is from all of these different images, choose 3 or more appropriate photo elements that can be composited together into your poster. And you may choose them from the photos below. Make sure that your photo elements are license-free and high resolution, so you know that these ones are license-free and high resolution. No copyright protected imagery or watermarked imagery. So if you go to Google, that is not a good source to find a different image. If you want something else, try pexels.com. This is free stock photos, and I will save this for you guys, and I'll actually put it in. Here, where am I gonna put it? Poster design. There you go. In case if you want that URL for different images. Please don't use clip art, illustrations, or graphics. Choose a slogan for your campaign from the list below. Take a stand, lend a hand. Be the change you wish to see in the world. A good planet is hard to find. Less pollution is the best solution. No place for racism. No compassion, no peace. No compassion, no peace. Being cruel isn't cool. End the silence, stop the violence. Dignity, respect, and justice for all. Normalize equality, hope not hate. And you're going to use the principles of contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity when you're designing your poster and utilizing the slogan. You may create, and this is optional, you may create a fictional website URL to put at the bottom of your poster. And then what we're going to do is we're going to export a full-size PDF, so that's for our print. And then we're going to export a JPEG that's been optimized for the web and resized to 72 dpi and 500 pixels on its shortest side, so 500 pixels wide. Okay, you're going to save your file as DES 104, assignment 4, first and last, and then again, export a file as a JPEG and a PDF. But you need to save that original PSD file. Do not forget that. All right, so I have put in the announcements this week. Oh, where are you? That I was going to be showing how to also add a couple of logos to the poster. You don't need to do this, but if you wanted to make your poster look like it was for the ad council, that is okay. You can choose to do that, and I gave you the ad council logo that you can use. But again, not at all a requirement. It's not even on there. I'm just going to be doing that, so I figured, you know, if you wanted to see it, that is fine. Here's another thing that I am doing for this week. I am going to be choosing a different slogan. So I'm going to be using photos from here, but I'm choosing a different slogan than what is available to you guys. So that way, you know, I don't have anybody who's, you know, working and doing the same exact thing that I'm doing. I'm actually using one of the ad council's slogans, and I will be putting that together. All right, so let's take just a quick 5-minute break. I just need to blow my nose and drink some water because I'm almost losing my voice here. So let's just take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll jump into Photoshop and we'll get started on this. All right, sorry guys, thanks for holding on. We'll get back into it. All right, so for the rest of our slides, I'm gonna share my slideshow with you like I do every single week, but let's just take a quick look again. The assignment 4, you know, I'm going to do a demo. There's also principles of design in the pre-recorded lecture and using layout strategy in the pre-recorded lecture. You're going to want to combine 3 or more images. You can get your own, but again, make sure that you are, you know, getting your images from a copyright-free site. And I did give you one. Adding text, the slogan has been provided. But if you want to do your own slogan, again, run that by me first. You can add a fictitious URL if you really want to. Look at, but don't copy the benchmarks. Again, a demo in the pre-recorded, you can compare your options on a contact sheet. And then additional demos right now. And then consider this, remember, you're communicating a message to the viewer. So it's more about making sure that that message comes across than, you know, you saying, but I like this image. Remember that. So you kind of got to take yourself out of this in a way. Also, some additional considerations. Think about your fonts. Fonts add to the communication. They should be legible. They should match the mood of your poster. You know, you should be combining maybe a complex and a simple font. There's more on that in DES 113 for sure. And then colors. Again, adds to the communication, the emotion, the contrast. But again, also more on that in DES 114. Your choices should reflect the message, not be your favorites. You know, this is something we have to remember constantly in graphic design. So, some design pointers. As little text as possible, make sure that the text is noticeable. Image and text combinations, it should be seen and read at a distance. You know, pique the interest of the viewer the closer they get. When creating a design, always think about how it's being used and what the user experience might be. And then here's that pexels.com website. Let me put it on the other slide too. There we go. Kind of running off the page, but that's okay. So 3 images, use shape max, add text, use the graph principles, you know, test some new layer adjustments, test some new blending modes, make a few options to test the tools that you've learned. You know, this is a time for experimentation using those non-destructive techniques that you've been learning. Maybe sketch it up first. Go through and look for fonts. You have many font resources at your disposal thanks to Adobe. And I will show you how to get to some of those today. Also, remember to name your layers. Even name the layers that show the fonts, so that way you know what font you use. And we're going to go over saving it as a JPEG and saving it as a PDF. So again, I'll share my slides with you, but there's some tips to go over this. So we're going to create a document that's 17 inches tall and 11 inches wide at 300 DPI. Go into Photoshop, create a new document, and our print document is going to need to be CMYK. So I want it to be 11 inches wide by 17 inches high. Change my orientation. It needs to be portrait. My resolution is 300, and I want to change my color mode to CMYK. And create. And first things first, I'm going to grab my naming convention of this and save that PSD file before I even get started. So I'm going to put this in my week 4 Change that to my first and last name and hit OK. And I accidentally so here are my images that I downloaded. So I have my ad console logo. I have my this guy shows up in DES 114, and I refer to him as world's most photogenic kayaker every single time. So we have world's most photogenic kayaker. Here's my text, and here's my other photo, and my other little logo that I'm gonna put on there, and my background photo. So remember last week where we did a file, place embedded? We want to do that this week as well, especially with their background image. So I'm going to go over to my images, and first thing first is I'm going to grab this background, and hopefully it's large enough. And I can go up to 100%. So I'm going to link this and do 100, whoops, by 100. Oh, come on. Okay. And I'll place that at 100%. And I'm probably going to need to find a different different cloud background, which is fine. Or maybe, hold on, maybe, just maybe, I'm going to download this just in case. We'll see. I don't know if I'm going to use it though. Drag that in. I might use it, I might not use it. And designing on the fly here. I'm going to do a file, place embedded. I'll grab that sky earth. Again, link it first. And maybe do that. We'll see. Not quite sure. Not quite sure how I'm going to start putting all this together. Oh, place embedded. Grab my world's most photogenic kayaker. I'm going to place him at 100%. Is like really large, but that's fine. Bring him up here. And then file, place embedded, and I'm going to grab this guy just because I have a funny idea for him. And I could probably place him at this size. I don't think I need him that much bigger. I'm going to turn him off for now. And I'm actually going to turn him off for now because I want to deal with my background first. So, all right. Let me start to think. I kind of want this here. Zoom in. And I don't know. I'm not feeling the sky galaxy background. I think I just want the cloud background. So I'm going to go to that pexels.com that I shared with you, and I'm going to look for sky background. Sometimes you have to be really vague when you're looking for images. Although that's pretty much what I need right here. Something like this. With some pretty fluffy clouds. So let's see how big this is. I don't know if it'll tell me. I'll download it and we'll check it out. We'll see if it's the right size. Oh, perfect. And at 10%. Oh, yeah, that is perfect. All right, so we'll bring this guy here. We'll put him behind our wooden fence. And then I'm going to get rid of the original sky back here because I'm going to use this guy instead. So again, this is where I need to do my non-destructive techniques. So I am going to, I'm going to do a clipping mask. And let me see. Probably be easiest for me to, again, I like to use quick mask mode for this, so I'm going to use quick mask mode. And let me see, change my hardness though to 100, maybe 90%. However, I need that to be a little bit larger. 13, maybe 7. Start to paint with my brush tool. Remember, I used this a lot last week when I was doing my mock-up. And if I click my brush here and I hold shift and then I click right here, it connects those 2 points with a nice straight line. So little trick for you. I tend to work a little bit faster that way when I just kind of hold down shift to go from spot to spot. And draw it all in. There we go. Again, and then what I'm going to do is I'll use that same technique that I used last week, where I'm going to just fill in the inside with the magic wand and then the fill tool, instead of having to actually paint it all in. Reset a little bit. Okay. There we go. Almost done. I'm pretty sure anyways. Watch, I'm probably like 1/3 of the way through, but okay. And there we go. All right. And we reached the end. I'll zoom out a little. I'm just gonna follow along right to the edge from one corner to the other corner. To that corner. And back up to this corner and close it all in. And then I'll take my magic wand tool. I'm going to select the inside, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand my selection. So I'm going to go up to Select, Modify, Expand. And this gets rid of, I'd gone over this last week, but this gets rid of that little haze sometimes that you have. So because it wasn't set to, my brush wasn't set to 100%. So sometimes it's off by a pixel or so when you're trying to select inside. And then I'm going to go to Edit, Fill. And either foreground color because it's black or black is fine. And I'll fill that in. I'll deselect, so select, deselect, or Command D. And when I turn off Quick Mask, I'm going to need to select the inverse because that's what I'm going to be masking. So I'm going to have to go to Select, Inverse, and then over in my Layers palette, I'll click on the Add a Layer Mask, and there we go. It crops out just the, whatchamacallit, the fence and the grass underneath. So I have that new sky background now. Perfect. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. I've done quite a few things here. And not gonna lie, I've been so busy with everybody being so sick, I have not restarted my machine in a few days. So save and save often. That's what I say to you guys. I need to remind myself to do that as well. And I'm not gonna use this earth, so I'm just gonna trash that layer. Get it out of here. Get it out of here. All right, next thing I wanna do is I wanna focus on my guy. Here's my guy. He's rather large right now. I placed him at 100%, but because I placed him embedded, I can scale him down. So I'm going to do that. Let's go down to, like, I have this like funny idea of what I think I'm going to do with him. Maybe right here. Maybe right here. Yeah, we'll try this. I'm gonna put them right here. All right, so what I want to start to do, which again is going to be kind of weird, is I want my grass I have here to kind of start to fade into my water, which is going to be kind of a whole thing. So, and I want him to come up over my, overlaying my little fence area here. And then my other thought is to have this guy look like he's kind of poking up over the fence. Like, hey, what are you doing? And then my tagline is going to be, where did I put it? Every neighborhood has a nature hood. So that's what I'm trying to put together. It's my neighborhood nature hood. So it's kind of this kind of weird, funky campaign that I'm doing right here. All right. So I think the first thing I need to do is just kind of turn him off for a second. And I need to drop a ruler right where the edge of my grass is. So I have a decent idea kind of where things are located right now. And then I'm going to start to mask him out. So because I want really just the upper part of his body to go over, and I'm going to remove the background, probably drop yet another line, maybe right here, where I'm going to have this start to kind of blur, I think. But again, I might need to make 2 copies of him to get this to work the way that I want it to work. So we're just going to kind of wing this. Right? So that's what we're doing today. We're just kind of winging things. All right, so I'm going to enter quick mask mode again. Go to my brush tool, and I'll just start over here with this paddle. Make my brush a little bit larger. And I really need to kind of be aware where his paddle meets the background. I might have to go back in afterwards and kind of fix that. And erase out where I mess up a little bit too far. There we go. And he's got like some water droplets here, so let's try to get those water droplets. Make it a little bit more authentic that way. Just gonna go right kind of to this line that I made. And go back up. So what I'm trying to do with him is going to be a little bit more advanced Photoshop techniques. Well, it's kind of, you know, definitely get to show you guys how to do it. And again, this is where I feel having a mouse really comes in handy, because I could not do this with my finger on the trackpad. I am not that good with the trackpad. You know, maybe with a stylus, possibly, but I am so used to using a mouse. I don't even know. I don't even know if I could do that. And get his hair. Shake out my wrist for a second. This is where my carpal tunnel really starts to bother me, doing really intricate work like this. Get back in here. This guy reminds me of that meme that was out a while ago, like the world's most photogenic runner meme, where the guy was like at the marathon and somebody just snapped a picture of him and he was just like, I don't even look like I'm running a marathon. That's kind of like what this guy reminds me of. It cracks me up every time I see this photo. And he shows up in a couple of classes. So this will not be the first time that you see this guy. And meet up to our ore over here. Make sure I got it all. And I'm going to go in with my magic wand tool and select and expand and then fill it in. Deselect it. And then all right, let me think for a moment. I'm going to select his inverse. Okay. And I'm going to put a mask on him. Whoops. Oh, I must have already selected his inverse. Select his inverse. Put a mask on him. And then I need to make a copy of him. And the bottom one, turn on his quick mask. Whoops. Oh, that wasn't what I meant to do. Cancel. Mask options, no. I'm going to delete his layer mask on this one. And what I'm going to do, this is going to be a little bit weird. I'm going to add a different layer mask. I'm not going to select anything first. This is where I had to kind of think through what I was going to do. I'm going to add a layer mask first. And then what I'm going to do is this is kind of a weird technique, but it really works. I'm going to go to my gradient tool and I'm going to keep it on black and white right here. And I got to remember which way I got to select. I think it might be this way. All right. Yep. I am going to run a gradient from this line to this line. And this line up. There we go. All right. From this line up. So now, as you can see, this is the part of him that I just kind of masked out up here. Instead of coloring him in, what I have done is I've added a gradient as my mask, and anything where the white part of the gradient is showing through, and the black part is the original photo. So kind of a weird thing, but now I've got that effect that I was looking for where the grass kind of has faded into the water. And again, it's one of those things where it's like you gotta kind of trial and error it because it's a little bit weird. All right. So let's look at this guy next, just because I kind of want him popping up from behind here, from behind our like, hey, like, howdy, neighbor. I'm trying to decide where I want to put him. Maybe You're right here. So I'm going to take off his background. So again, I'll go in with my quick mask tool, my brush tool, and just start to kind of paint him in. I just thought it'd be kind of funny. Like I always think of like the Home Improvement show where what's his name? What was he? Wilson or something? Was always like popping his head over the side of the fence, but you never saw what he really looked like. So he's like this guy's neighbor, like, hey, what are you doing? What's going on? Nature in the neighborhood, huh? There we go. Again, trying to do my best to get like his fuzzy fur here. Not the easiest. Oh, turn off those extras. I'll make it a little bit easier. And really get in there and color in his fur. I'll do that part after. And I like doing these projects with you guys because, you know, like for this one, all I did was beforehand, I chose some images, but I didn't really think out how I was going to put this together because I wanted you guys to see my process that I go through for kind of trying to decide how to put things together and kind of designing on the fly, which is kind of how, you know, the making two layers of that person went. You know, if I had thought this out and I was like, and then I'm going to do this and add a gradient, you would probably been like, how'd she know how to do that? You know, it's just kind of trial and error, like, let's look at it this way, let's look at it that way, let's look at it this way. And I had known that I have used that kind of that gradient trick with the quick mask in the past, and I've liked the results. So again, you know, just kind of some of my experience because I've been doing this for a long time. So that's kind of how I knew to do that. But I mean, you know, the first time I figured it out, I was like, oh, hey, look at what that did. That worked. I'm going to use this trick again. So it's kind of figuring out a lot of, you know, graphic design is kind of just figuring out what works and then repeating it whenever you can to make it work for other things. You know, we try not to reinvent the wheel too many times because there's really no need. Fuzzy hair don't care. Oh, coloring them in. Those fuzzy animals always are the most difficult because hair is always just, whew, what a pain. You don't have to be exact. You know, try to just get as close as possible. You know, if it's one straight line, it's not realistic looking, but you know, if you can kind of get some of those bumps and grooves of the hair in, I think it makes it look more realistic. Personally, that's what I think. His whole hand, gotta kind of figure out where his hand is on this dark background. He's got dark hand, dark background. There we go. Probably, maybe just about to here would probably be okay. If I got to add to it, I'll add to it. Magic Wandom. So select, modify, expand, and edit fill. And then deselect, leave quick mask, select my inverse, and I'll add, and I'm gonna kind of move him, I think. Where do I want? All right, I kind of wanted his hand resting here. Maybe something kind of like this. All right, so I need to figure out what else I gotta take out of here. So let me bring, no opacity. Why? Get out of here. Oh. Oh, I'm losing my mind. My opacity is right here. I'm like looking up here like I'm in InDesign. But this is one thing, and you'll notice this when you start to go through the Adobe programs and learning them, is sometimes they're like, oh, you know, Photoshop is going to work exactly the same as Illustrator, which is going to work exactly the same as this, which is not going to work exactly the same as this. Isn't that fun, kids? And you'll say, no, it's not, actually. All right, so I want to continue to add to my mask. I want to take this part of him out, so that way the wood fence shows through, so it looks like he's literally right behind the fence. So I gotta paint on some more black here, and that'll remove that from here, from the mask. And then I'm gonna do the same thing over here. I'm gonna keep this wooden panel so it shows up in front of him. So I brought down his opacity so I can kind of see where the fence is. Makes it a little bit easier. Mm. Oh, no. I'm going to keep this hand I'm going to keep in the front. All right. And we'll turn him back up. So here he is. He's chilling back there. Like, hey, what are you doing? With my guy. And next, what I want to add is I want to add my my text. I think I have all my images done. I do. So I'm going to save this. And then we'll look into adding in this text. And I might bring, let me check out these clouds. This is only at 10%. I might, I'm going to just, there we go. There's a lot of white of the clouds back there. I think he stands out a little bit more against that blue. All right, so let's take a look at my text. Every neighborhood has a naturehood. So that's going to be my headline of my poster. And Adobe has a lot of different fonts that you can choose from. So if you go to the text tool and you go to window and you open up, whoops, character, and let's say that you go to look at your fonts. What you might notice is that you have an option that says add fonts from Typekit. Typekit has a whole bunch of free fonts that you can add directly to your machine that you don't have to pay for. There are some that you do have to pay for, but there's a whole bunch that you don't have to pay for. So let's click on that. And what it'll do is it opens up in your web browser. And you'll just want to make sure that when you open it up in your web browser, it shows that you are logged in. You can tell if you're, if you've set a photo with your name. You should be able to tell based on your email address. But then what you can do is you can look for sans serif, serif, slab serif, script, black letter, monotype, hand, decorative. Some fonts are easier to read than others. So you want to remember, you want to think about readability. Yes, it is okay to use a decorative font as long as it's readable as your headline. No, you do not want to use a decorative font for any body copy, because body copy is typically smaller than your headline. So let me pull up the ad council and I can kind of show you what I'm talking about. Family and community. This is where I got my idea from, was Discovering Nature. Which one was it? Discovering Nature. Something like this. Every neighborhood has a naturehood. So this is their outdoor campaign. So here they are with their kayak or their canoe that they're walking through what looks to be, New York City. So clearly this has been photoshopped in as well. Here's their, every neighborhood has a naturehood. So the naturehood is in more of a kind of script font, and the every neighborhood has is in a sans serif font. Sans serif fonts don't have the little feet at the bottom. So, you want to think of that, discovertheforest.org. Again, in a sans serif font, an easier to read font than if it was in the script font. because you want to make sure that you have that readability. So I'm going to try to find similar type fonts. So that way I can kind of match the feel of their campaign. This might be a good one. This might be a good one. And what you can do is put in the word you're looking for. So I actually don't like that N, so I'm not going to use that one. Kind of like this one. Actually, that one's a pretty good one as well. Still readable. That one's pretty good. Ooh, this one's good. I think I like this one the best. Apparently, I must have liked it for something else, but I never added it. So then once you find the font that you like, all you have to do is click the green sync button, and it's going to add it into Photoshop for you. That's all you have to do. I've exceeded my sync limit. Visit your synced fonts page. Oh, that's because every time you guys sync a font, I have to sync it on my end. Oh, let's see what I can get rid of. Oh, get rid of this, 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 get rid of this. Anything I don't recognize. I don't remember what I just synced. Hopefully it's at the bottom. If not, we'll figure it out. I don't know why I synced Futura, because I own it. Oh, Victor, that's what it was. All right. Keep it going. I use this for everything. All right, perfect. And Kepler can go too. All right. Whew, I was like, man, I already reached my limit. So the next thing I want to do is I know what this font is, and I know I have this font on my machine. I just need to think for a moment. But it's probably, I think it's Bebo's, honestly. It's like one of those things where it's like, the more you do stuff, Bebos. That's what it is. Yes, Bebos. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to set my type to white. And I want to click up here because when I put down my type, I want it to be like the top layer. So it's always going to put it above the layer. And I'm going to draw a text box. So I'm going to click and drag because I want to make sure, and this is another thing, you know, keep a margin, which you might want to set up with some rulers before you get going. I think a good margin is a 1/2 inch personally, where you want to keep your text from going a 1/2 inch from each edge. So it never hurts to kind of draw in a guide. Where's my arrow? There we go. So this would be 10.5. Drop that one there. Again, just to, you know, keep that margin, and then you can, you know, keep your text box within that margin. So let's see. Where's my text here? Every neighborhood has a once you click off it, you have to double click on the text layer to get that text box back. Every neighborhood has a, but the problem with this Bebos font is that it doesn't have a non-caps version, like a lowercase version. And I want to make sure that I have a lowercase version because I want to use a lowercase version for my URL because, again, readability, it's very difficult to read a URL when it's all caps. So again, it all comes, even though I like that Bebos font, it all comes back to the readability. So let's try different sans serif fonts. Um, and I can see what they look like in all caps. This one's pretty good. I want something that's a little bit skinnier. So a little bit of a skinnier width. This one might be a good choice. And probably right here, this one. I'm going to sync this one. Because I don't really feel like I need all 30 of them. That's how you end up filling up your Typekit fonts really quickly. And that was Parasine. And sometimes it takes a minute for it to sync. Whoops. Nope. There it is. And I can change it right to all caps right in my character panel. See how it shows the 2 uppercase T's? Go to all caps. Every neighborhood has. And where's my type tool? And I'm going to change this to my, begin with a V. V-E, another easy way to find it, go up here and click on the TK and it'll only show Victor script. There it is. It'll show you only the ones that you downloaded. Neighborhood, not caps. All caps, as you can see, very difficult to read. And whoops, went outside of my text box. So I have 2 options here. Make my text box a little bit larger, but I want to also bring up the line and bring them closer together. And that's where this number comes in. And you'll see it's set to auto, but you can set it to a different number. So I'm going to set it to, and you want to make sure that, see the top of my H and my D, it's like I don't want that to run into the letters above. So maybe 150, we'll try 150. And I like the white font, however, I need it to stand out a little bit better against my blue background. So I'm gonna add a little bit of a drop shadow to it. And I'm thinking I'm gonna set my color actually as the blue background. So I'm gonna grab that. And I want it to be really subtle. I'm gonna try to set my distance to 0, but my spread, my size larger. You can kind of preview it, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. And it's almost like I have a stroke around it, but it's definitely a drop shadow. There. Perfect. So that stands out a little bit better now. And I'm going to add in the URL, which was, what was it? discovertheforest.org. So again, I'm going to do that in the same font that I have my every neighborhood in. So that was at Parasine, but I'm going to draw a new text box for that. Maybe put them right here. And bring down my font size. I don't need it to be as big. And definitely not all caps. Discover. But I'm going to capitalize the first letter. Discovertheforest.org. And maybe I'll visually align it with the end. Maybe the end of this D here. See how that looks. And I'm going to try the same exact effect that I did on this. I'm going to put it on this one. So what I can do is I can hold down Option, click on my effect, and drag it up on top of this layer, and it copies that effect so they're exactly the same. Again, for that consistency. Or I can try to, no, I kind of want it all up in here. But I'm going to embed my logos into my fence here. Because I have two logos that usually run on this ad campaign, the Ad Council and the Discovery Nature logo. Or it's called something else. The U.S. Forest logo. I was like, wait a minute. What do they call it? They can call it that. All right, so I'm going to File. I'm going to place an embedded. And I'm going to grab my Ad Council logo first. And I don't need them that big. So I'm going to, again, constrain my proportions. And I'll put that one maybe right here. And then do the same thing, File, Place Embedded. And grab my U.S. Forest logo. And lock my, constrain my proportions. I want them to be the same size, so I'm kind of dropping him right on top of the other one and scaling them down, so that way they're the same size. And I'll put them side by side. Move him over a little. Maybe move them both up just a smidge. And I am going to give this guy an adjustment layer of black and white. Oh, use saturation. No, not you. Oh, I want you attached to you. Yes, delete you. You must have. Why aren't you linking? Link. Ugh. Nope, still not linking. Why aren't you linking? Here's my history. All right, I'll add a mask to you. And then oh. I know I'm like doing this wrong. So it's been a minute since I've done like a hue. So I don't use hue saturation masks all the time. And when you're in CMYK, it doesn't work the same way as it does when you're in RGB. So I gotta think for a minute. This is one of those things where I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. I gotta think. I gotta remember why it's not working right. Delete that layer mask. Oh. Also, it doesn't help that I got like zero sleep the last 3 nights. I'm like, this is like one of the things I know how to do, obviously, and I'm just losing my mind right now. Oh, layer, new adjustment layer. There we go. Okay. There we are. All right. All right. Not losing my mind. Whew. Bring up that a little bit. There we go. Oh, sometimes I worry I'm just losing my mind. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this one to multiply. I want it to look like it's kind of like been embedded almost, like burnt into the wood. I thought that'd be kind of cool. Maybe like branded into the wood or something. Put that one there. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this one. This one's already black and white, so I'm just going to try to fudge it with the multiply here. Let's try. No. Multiply and I'll bring down the opacity maybe to 80. Maybe 70. There we go. So now they kind of look like they've been kind of burnt almost into the wood there. Which I'm sure is not what the Forest Service really wants to see, but you know, whatever. I think it looks kind of cool. So we've got every neighborhood has a naturehood, discovertheforest.org. I'm gonna save it. So I have my PSD file. It's all saved. I know I have all my layers. So now I need to save my two different options, my one print option, and I need to save my JPEG for the web. But again, I have my PSD file first. So you want to make sure, just double check that you have that PSD file. There it is, that you've saved it as 143. I saved it at 143. Now I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to check Photoshop PDF and click Save. And hit OK. And I want it to be a high quality print because this is the one I'm sending to the printer, remember? Click Save PDF and just hit Yes. Then take a hot minute to do that. And we'll double check that PDF file. Oh, wasn't finished. Still 99%. Come on. All right, there we go. Well done. Now let's open it up. So this is the file that's going to go to my printer. Here we go. And I also need a file that is for the web. So this is where you can do that save as, or it's actually, it used to be save as, but now it's like file, export, save for web legacy. It does all the work that you need to do for you. Save it for web just used to be an option, and for some reason they put it in the export tab and called it something else a couple of versions ago, which messes up everybody who's been using this program for forever. And once you do that, it's going to pop open a dialog box for you that's going to give you a whole bunch of different options, which is good because we like options. And again, it's going to take a minute. This is kind of a large file. Mine was 64 megabytes that I'm working on here. All right. So you want to use the preset for JPEG. You also want to, what did it tell us? We need it to be 500 pixels on its shortest side. So its shortest side is its width. So we want to change the width down here to 500, and it's going to change the height for us automatically because notice how the proportions are constrained or linked. So it should be 500 by 773 when you are done. Leave it at medium and then hit save. And you can see it's going to be 73.93 kilobytes when I'm finished. And you're going to need to direct it back to the folder because it's going to put it in wherever, basically. So direct it back to where you need everything saved, into your week 4 folder. And it's also going to convert it to RGB for you. It's going to do everything it needs to do to make it ready to go to the web. Otherwise, you would have to do all of those options yourself if you just do file save as JPEG. So that's why you want to use that file export and changing it to that legacy. See, it's already RGB and it is 500 pixels by 773 pixels. So it's the correct size. Everything is good to go. And we'll close this. And it says, do you want to save changes to your PDF? I don't need to. It's already been saved. So you should have, when you're finished, you should have your JPEG that you're uploading. You should have your PDF file that you're uploading. And you should have your native PSD file. You need to have all 3 of those. But you only need to upload your JPEG and PDF for submission. So just remember that. And again, you can submit that assignment. You do not get a chance to do a redo for the week 4 assignment and assessment. It's kind of a one-shot deal. So, you know, think before you upload. Just try to make sure that you, you know, everything's fine and look everything over before you upload because it is one shot for the week 4. I don't allow resubmissions because those are due at midnight tonight. And then again, don't forget you have that week 4 assessment. Everything for the assessment, you know, all of the different tips, tricks, how-tos are in the course media, the readings and videos for this week. So you need to watch those first before you do the assessment for this week. Again, if you have any missing work for weeks 1 and 2 that is due by Friday night, if you want to resubmit anything for a higher grade, that's due by tonight. And if you need extra time for week 1 and 2, and you need until Saturday, you need to email me and ask me for the link to submit your files to, because you will not be able to submit them to the week 1 and 2 area because it will lock out on Friday night at midnight. And make sure that you are uploading early for Saturday. Don't wait until the last minute. All right, so we're going to have the multi-session after this. The multi-session is actually going to start in about 10 minutes, but I do need to end this meeting and restart another meeting in order to end our recording for today. So for those of you who were going to stay for the multi-session, if you just want to log in another 10 minutes when it starts, and we'll get started on that. All right, and thanks everybody who was able to make it today. And for those of you watching at home, it's been a great 4 weeks with you.